It's a people's business. There's lots of emotions, and all you want is facts and policies. You don't want to use your emotions in the process. And that's what Keasy is doing. It's basically an operating machine for your real estate, but it's just the operating machine. You know what I'm saying? It needs instructions on how to work for you.
Hello everyone, Rick Albert here with another episode of the Key to the City of Angels. I'm super excited to talk to Liat Arama of Keasy Property Management. Kind of cool because I do own rental properties, so I've worked with property management, I've managed my own properties, so this should be a good conversation. Thank you so much for coming on.
Of course, thank you for having me.
Yeah, so why don't we talk about what you do and how you got into this space?
Yeah, I'll start with what I do. What I do is I give landlords choices and options on running their business in a different way. The way Keasy work is we can do everything. We can do everything from finding you a tenant, evicting your tenant, answer a service call, dispatch a vendor, inspection. We do all of these things. But the way we work is we have a menu of services that you get to choose from and use as you wish. Keasy clients, they pay a flat fee of monthly subscription that is fairly low, between $35 to $75, depending on the amount of doors that you have. And that gives you 24/7 property monitoring. Tenants can call, text, chat, email, and even send physical letters to us for you. And we will read, review, respond, manage all the communication for you. But we will not make any decisions for you. We will just tell you what's going on, and you can decide how you want it handled. And that, for me as a landlord myself, that was not exist and is a core feature of Keasy.
That's interesting because you're right. Sometimes they'll make bad decisions with property managers, or one of the biggest challenges we would have is because it's not their own money, it was hard to get them on board. A great example was, I remember a property manager that we used in the past. They did some pest control. Then all of a sudden, so we see that on the owner statement, but then we see the next month, we see another bill for pest control. And we're like, but I thought the last one took care of it. And I thought it was under warranty. There was none of that real effort to really no, we're going to treat this like it's our own.
This is exactly why we started Keasy. And this is all coming from their incentives. Right? Like, when are they making money? They are making money when you are spending money. So, of course, they will send pest control every month because they get a cut and they get a rebate. Yeah. And they have preferred vendors and they're preferred for them, not for you. So that's exactly what Keasy is trying to solve by, if you're a landlord, you're smart enough to make your own decisions. Here is what's going on.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. If you were smart enough to buy the property, you're smart enough to know what's up. And to be fair, like in LA, I work a lot with like house hackers. So people who are buying for themselves, rent out another bedroom, whatever. And they're like, I don't know if I want to do that. I'm like, well, one of the reasons why you want to at least try that as your first property is so you understand property management.
Completely.
Because I've seen so many times people are giving their homes to these property management companies, and then they find out, like I just did a walkthrough with the client where we're about to list their home. It was with the property manager. I noticed there was no smoke detectors in any of the bedrooms. So I was like, okay, maybe the tenants took them down. That's super common. But I'm like, I don't even see the screws or the wiring. And so
nobody.
No. Yeah. So like, how are you incorporating the technology you're putting together with the communication of the owners?
So at the core, what Keasy is doing is separating the person on the field from the brain. In a traditional property management, the person that's going to the property and inspecting the property is the property manager themselves, right? So they do what they do, they pick up their coffee, take their cookie, and off they go. At Keasy, I do not expect, so we send key holders, which are individual that works for Keasy, and they're super trained, but they don't use their brain to complete the move-out inspection. They follow an app. And the app tells them, go here, check this, open that, close that. The app is detailed. When we just started, we had a general cleaning 1 to 5. And we had a key holder that wrote 5, clean, beautiful, ready to go. The unit was not clean. So we thought, how can we remove the opinion from that, from the 1 to 5? Added to the app an extra request, we're forcing the key holder to take a picture of inside the fridge.
I see. You're taking rid of the subjectivity.
Exactly. Don't give me your opinion. I don't want to hear it. And it is, if you think about it, it is so good for property management to operate like this because it's a people's business. There's lots of emotions, and all you want is facts and policies. You don't want to use your emotions in the process. And that's what Keasy is doing. It's basically an operating machine for your real estate, but it's just the operating machine.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It needs instructions on how to work for you.
So when you were first starting up this company, where was like the biggest disconnect you saw with property managers and their owners?
Oh, the decisions. 100%.
Yeah.
It's always you nailed it in your first sentence, because property managers makes money when you lose money. Your incentives are opposite. They want short-term tenants so they'll have more turnover. They make money on turnover.
Right.
They want repair and maintenance because they mark up repair and maintenance. Right? They want 6 months renewal. Why not get the fee twice? Where at Keasy, we say you can choose any type of renewal you want, but you can also just renew month to month. If you have a tenant for a year and you don't want to pay renewal fee every year, there is an option.
Yeah.
So basically, we broke it down to a menu, right? Like we literally have a menu of services, everything from occupancy check, eviction, everything.
Yeah.
But the menu is the menu, and you are the client. You get to decide what we do next.
What I started seeing recently with property management, and actually one of the main drivers for me leaving my last property manager, was that they were actually starting to charge a vacancy fee.
Oh yeah, I believe that. Yeah.
And I was like, what the?
Yeah.
Because I was like, well, they're like, the argument is they still have to maintain the property even while it's vacant. And I said, I get that, but your fee isn't that much lower than if it was normally rented. So you're incentivized not to rent it. Because I would lose $20 a month if it meant I don't have to worry about tenant calls. I'm like, and how do I know? I'm like, are you going to do anything different to get it rented faster? And they're like, no, we're still going to do our normal. I'm like, no. We're so way off base. And I don't know what you're saying, but it seems like it's taking much longer for things to get rented. We're seeing a little bit of pickup, but so it is taking longer. So it's okay, if I have 4 vacant units and I'm paying on all of these just to sit empty, like it just doesn't work. There's no money to be had.
I agree. I totally agree. And also, who decides what price you put in your rent on the market, and what are your screening criteria, right? Like some property management companies has impossible screening criteria. I keep telling my landlords, if you ask for tenants to have such an incredible income and credit, they will be homeowners. They will not be rentals.
Yeah, I just had that conversation with one of my clients.
Yeah, so there's also that, because for a property manager, especially if they have a vacancy fee, then they will only accept tenants that are golden. Never an issue, never a problem. Why work hard? Versus maybe you'll take a risk. Maybe you're going to go, I'll lower my criteria because I want this place filled. So basically on any decision you have to make during the day, if you pay your manager the way the current model works, then you are paying someone to make a decision. That someone will make more money if it will make bad decisions for you. Plain simple.
Yeah. How many units are you guys basically kind of have under management, clients, that sort of deal?
So we've launched Keasy a year and a half ago, 18 months ago. We've recently crossed 500 doors under management.
Amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you. Just 1.5 years of bootstrapping and hard working. We're a small team here. Obviously, the model works phenomenal because a small team of skilled people with the right technology and automations and AI support can get a lot done.
Right.
Which is amazing. It's such a fun experience to build something like this now, consider all the new technology and where the world is heading to. But yeah, we are in Washington State right now, and we are going to expand very soon, I believe, to Texas. And really, my big vision is to be the go-to for rentals, right? Keasy, find me a house. Keasy, find me a tenant. Keasy, like that's what I want to be.
And I'd be curious to get your thoughts on the type of clientele you're attracting, right? Because like I'm really active in Bigger Pockets. I don't know if you're familiar with the website. Like I'm on the forum every day. I listen to some of the podcasts. Total shout out On the Market. It's a fantastic podcast, by the way. But I'm noticing when I'm talking to people, they're like, a lot of these investors, they're like hybrid. Like they don't necessarily want to have to deal with everything, but they want to be part of the decision making. So what kind of clientele have you noticed you've been really getting? Are they like first time investors, long-time investors across the board?
Yeah. Generally, it's across the board, but we can see definitely newer landlords want to be involved and asking a lot of questions. And we found ourselves developing what we call the Keasy Academy,
Mm-hmm.
which is basically an AI brain that takes all the tips and experience and local rules and regulation and like coach people through the process, especially when you're going through an uncomfortable process like abandonment or eviction. So that's kind of like one side of the thing. The other side is the large operators, which we have a few large operators that has like 20, 30, 50, 90. And these people is exactly that. There's things that they're really good at and there's things that they're really bad at. So
Right.
we
I've heard.
run their collection in full, but they do their own repair and maintenance, or we run. I mean, there's all kind of models, but that's exactly the magic of Keasy, that you come in, you tell us what you want, and we build you a custom package. I have owners on the portfolio side that likes to talk to us once a month. So they book an online, it's called the Pulse meeting, and we have like this quick check-in that we check everything about your property. I have those who like to speak to me once in a quarter. And then we have landlords that are like, just set it and forget it, you know?
Yeah, it's funny because I've told my property managers, I'm like, look, you give me a list of recommendations for repairs. I usually approve about 99% of them.
Yeah.
Right? 'Cause I'm like, you're the boots on the ground because most of my stuff's now out of state. So I'm like, you know better than I do. Like I had one property manager say, hey, we want to replace your roof. I'm like, is the roof old? No, we just like to do it for capital expenditures. I'm like, no, you're not going to spend 30 grand on a roof just for shits and giggles. But
But it's important to have a plan, right?
right. But the educational part's interesting because I've always wondered that, and I've always thought about it for property managers because what they don't, I think one thing that they're missing is if they can teach their clients more about
Exactly.
the real estate investing, that means the more properties they can buy, which then means more under management, right? Like it's easier to have, like for me, because with the investors I do work with, it's like I'll do 3, 4, 5, 6 deals with them. So it's in my
Yeah,
best interest to help that particular investor
absolutely.
grow.
Absolutely. And it has never been easier to do that.
And the education aspect, calling check-ins, so things like that. Where do you think, from what you're seeing, do you see a lot of your investors actually growing their portfolio right now? Are they staying put? What are you seeing?
Oh, generally, globally, where the world is right now, money moves slow, right?
Right.
Everyone's on the fence. Are we all going to die or it's going to be okay? I don't know. So everything is happening slower than usual.
Fair.
Okay, fine. But generally, in my Keasy world here in Washington, we have a lot of landlords that came to us with one building or a single family or a duplex or even small and bought more because it's so convenient, right? You get to keep all the control, but you don't have to talk to the tenant ever if you don't want to, right?
Mm.
Like we call it the emotional filter. Oh my gosh, the toilet is leaking, the whole house is full of blah, 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 blah. Dear landlord, you have a leaky toilet. Would you like us to, one, do this, two, do that?
Yeah.
Situation hasn't changed. The landlord's ended.
Right.
And that's our secret sauce.
So is it like I get a text message, it's like press 1 to snake it, press 2 to swap it out? Is that kind of how it works?
Yeah, we do it. Most landlords, we do it in an email now. We have
Sure.
tons of landlords that are asking us to do it in a in a WhatsApp message. So we're considering extending to that. But generally, we are a concierge. Something happens, we ask you what you want us to do. We do it now. Here comes the knowledge. You tell me, no, don't repair the toilet. I rather the tenant to not have a bathroom. I'm not going to say no problem, sir. Thank you for have a nice day. I'm going to say, wait a second. You are a landlord. Here is the rule. This is what you have to do. Here
Sure.
are the options I can support. Now, it doesn't happen often, but in those edge cases where a landlord wants to do something that is either illegal or not into our moral codes, because we have our own
Sure.
moral code, we're just going to say no. And if needed, we're going to say no, not work with the landlord. That's pretty rare.
Yeah, I think sometimes I actually manage a Facebook group for landlords here in Southern California. The majority are Southern California. We're about
Mhm.
1,600-ish members. And
Wow.
yeah, sometimes I do have to explain those. Look, I know it doesn't sound great, but they are your customer, right?
Exactly.
This is a business. They are your
Yeah,
customer. You may not like the rent control laws. You may not like this, that, and the other. But then if you don't like it, then you should get out of it.
totally. Yeah. And every mistake you make has a cost. One of the things that we do often with landlords, we actually tell them, this is what you're supposed to do. This is the consequences of not doing what you're supposed to do.
Right.
You're not going to be able to collect rent. You're not going to be able to get possession, things like that. The education is important. I think for Keasy, what we find is we are not only delivering you the message of what happened, we're also giving you tools to make decisions, right? This is the relevant. I have tons of videos and presentations and resources. But if I send you a link to Keasy Academy now, you're just going to be overwhelmed.
Sure.
What we do is we send you the exact video that you need to see at the exact time that you're dealing with that situation.
Yeah.
And that combination plus the fact you're making your own decision, and it's really, for landlords, it's a lot of fun. I can tell you as a landlord myself, that was always my issue, right? Like that lack of control.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that we do really well at Keasy here is we're giving you the feeling of control even when you don't have control, right? Like you're running an eviction, one of the three can happen in the next month. We will tell you what is one of the three, and we will make it clear that it's up to the tenant, but at least now you know, and you have a date, and you have a time, and you know the options.
Yeah.
It makes your day a little bit better, even in the darkest moments.
Yeah. It was funny. I bought a fourplex last year, and when you inherit tenants, as the tenants like to test you.
Oh yeah.
Right? They're like, oh, we have someone new here. And I remember one of them was saying like, hey, I've been billed twice for this month from the previous owner and now you guys. And so my property manager said, what do you want to do? And I said, show me a statement that they got billed twice. I don't mind giving them the money back. They didn't do it. And so I said, if they didn't do it, then they probably haven't paid.
Yeah.
And they ended up moving out. What I think would have been a better conversation in hindsight, because by the time he moved out, the rents were like stagnant, right? Things weren't renting. So it would have been great because he was paying a very high rate. If my property manager had said, hey, look, maybe you might want to let this go because then we have to remodel the place. We have to bring in a new tenant. Here's what the current market looks like. Yeah. And I would have looked at that and said, it's going to cost me more.
But why would your manager behave any differently? Your property manager made a lot more money in the scenario that they created.
Exactly. So even though they got less rent, but percentage-wise, it's not that big of a gap, and they made it up. And I was like, son of a gun. Had you just had this conversation with me, I would have just said, you know what? Let him have a free pass because we're all new here. We're all learning each other. Totally get it.
Yeah. It's like, and one in-between way that we do it at Keasy, because we have the landlords that say we want to be involved in every decision, and then we have landlords that say I want to be hands-off. I want you to handle everything.
Sure. Truly passive.
Exactly. But in those cases, what we do is we ask leading questions. We do an onboarding session, and we ask, of course, recorded with AI and analyzed and coded and all of these things. But in that meeting, we ask you simple questions. How old is your roof? Are you planning to replace it anytime soon? So that we will know what to dispatch in case something happens with the roof. We basically ask, are you planning a long-term hold? Are you planning a refinance? What are your property goals? Right? One owner is going to say, I need the highest rent here. I don't care if it's going to take me a year to get it. And another owner will say, I need the cash flow. I don't care about optimizing the decisions that we will make will be based on what you're going to tell us in the onboarding call. And every time we make a decision, we will log it and explain why we made it based on the onboarding call.
Got it. Now, where most of your rentals are they in any sort of rent control or anything like that type of market?
We operate mainly in Washington State. We started now with a pilot in a second state, but we're generally Washington State. There's plenty of regulation here. Every year there's something new. We got Seattle and Tacoma that has layer over layer of things. So really a lot of my time is spent on training AI bots per zip code. Know exactly what am I allowed to do, because there is the Keasy policies and then there is the reality policies, and you want to make sure that Keasy's decisions are always compliant with whatever the law says. So that's really where the magic happens. But again, it has never been easier and to simplify the process.
Yeah, with AI, you do a quick search and just check the source.
Yeah.
To make sure it's accurate, because that's been the biggest challenge obviously here in LA is we have Los Angeles rent control. And so it's almost super hard to navigate. Right now we had the fires last year.
Yeah.
And so now there's price gouging laws that they keep expanding. So then but they don't notify us if the price gouging laws are still in effect. So like someone could be breaking the law and not even know it. And then I
And
looked
that's
online.
strategy. So
Right. But then like I looked
yeah.
online yesterday because I had a client that was asking me about it. Sure enough, we had I shouldn't do quotes rain. We actually had heavy rain, not
Yeah.
Washington rain, but LA rain, where we're like, we don't know what to do. It's wet. And we actually declared so what's an umbrella? We use it for the beach. We don't use it for rain because it doesn't rain here enough. But it's like there was this entire time there was a price gouging, like state, like in other words, we can't raise rent more than 10%. All
Yeah.
these laws that have been put into place, and they're in place until June.
Oh,
No, not even
nobody.
attorneys I know knew about it. Nobody knew about it. So how do you guys keep up with a lot of these like laws and making sure everyone's up to date, all that?
We basically program an engine to every data source that we've decided we're relying on. So, for example, Landlord Tenant Act, they make changes in April after the legislation session is over. We would go and update our data source on that date. And then like in Seattle, they have their dates, Tacoma has their dates. So basically, there's one time of deciding what are the sources that are your Bible and your first go to and your source of truth. Once you've defined them, you watch them like a hawk.
Hmm.
You need
Yeah,
to know what's going on. Somebody needs to know what's going on. And the whole magic of AI and everything we do now with technology and with knowledge, at the end of the day, it comes down to the knowledge source,
sure.
right? Like, not everything you find online is correct. I'm a managing broker, and obviously I'm running the professional part of the business, and I'm on top of it.
Yeah,
And every market that Keasy is going to get into, you will have to have a person that's on top of what happens in the outside world and which data source I trust and I'm willing to let all of Keasy client trust.
sure. Yeah, and that's why my clients call me because they just
Yeah, of
expect me to
course.
know, right?
Yeah.
And like I've now sold my last rental here in LA, and so people have asked me because they're like, if I want to invest in LA, but you're no longer investing in LA. I'm like, to
Yeah.
be fair, here's why, and I have my reasons why I sold. It wasn't necessarily because of rent control. It was a factor, but it wasn't a deciding factor. But I'm like, look, my job is to stay on top of this stuff, and I can't tell you how many times I meet agents who have no idea.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And then which is like interesting when I have listings that would make good for like good rentals. And
Hmm.
it's like they find out later on, oh, this was subject to rent controls. We disclosed that it was. They just didn't
Yeah.
know. They just don't know the laws. And it puts so many people in hot water. And so I'm curious, love to get your thoughts. I actually think going forward, as these regulations get more and more strict, it's either we're going to head towards institutional investors, like the mom and pops just can't keep up, or it's
Yeah.
going to go to property managers who are just going to get way more business because they're going to have to give it to someone who keeps up with this. What are you saying?
I do think that those two things will happen. There will be less moms and pops, and those who will stay will need more help.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm hopeful is that help is not going to be in the form of full-time property management because we have new tools that we didn't have before that can help you, right? I
Sure.
can produce pretty professional letter of everything with no previous knowledge on any industry if I really want to right now.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think the average user is going to go and say, "Oh, I can rule the world with AI," but it's definitely given institutional powers to the moms and pops.
Yeah.
And those younger generation of investors, and we see this a lot with Keasy's. Keasy's clients are obviously tech savvy. They're people that know their game. They're on top of things.
Yeah.
They don't just believe Keasy. They haven't even validated that we are a reliable source
Right.
yet until they get offended. They do their due deal. And I think if you own real estate, then you really should do your due deal. Nobody in the world will care about your property the way that you do.
Oh yeah. Oh no. When people get in trouble with their rentals, they're like, "Who's to blame? You're the one responsible." Sure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
People think that you give the property to property management, all your problems will be solved. No. The minute there is a serious problem, you're going to get the keys and good luck.
Yeah. Yeah, and we all sign away all these waivers that basically
Oh,
say you're still responsible for your own property. People will try to pawn stuff off to the property manager. Like, you probably signed something that said they have the right to market it and manage things, but really, you're at the end of the day, if a tenant's going to sue, they're going to sue you.
100%. And any landlord that thinks otherwise is just wrong, and I hope we'll never find out.
Right.
But yeah, basically, you're letting somebody else make decisions for you. You keep all the liability with you, and they make more money when they're making bad decisions. Just think about it. It's insane. This model just doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't. And it also in property managers' defenses, like the margins are also like tight, right? If they charge 10% of the rents
Yeah.
and your rent's $2,000 a month, it's like they can't really run a business off $200 a month, right? They can't pay an assistant.
How much are they working for those 200 a month? Because everything else they do, they charge extra. So
Well,
really,
that's my point. They have to
yeah,
charge those extras to make
yeah.
up for it, and then you get to a certain volume, all that. So no, I totally agree that it's a tough situation that kind of everyone's in. But at the end of the day, and I've explained this to every property manager I've ever worked with, I'm like, look, the more money I make means the more properties I can buy, which means the more money
Mhm.
you make.
It's true, except when most property managers, when you go and you work with them, you don't work with the owner, you work with an employee.
Mm-hmm.
The employee doesn't
Exactly.
care about your next investment. They care about leaving their office as early as possible, especially on sunny days in Seattle. You know how well that is. That there is a conflict of interest built into this industry. I understand why in the past you would charge a percent and you would charge a fee on transaction. In the past, you'd have to physically go to a house, pick up cash, go to a bank, deposit it. That
Yeah.
cash was on you. During the
Sure.
time the cash was on you, it was your responsibility. I get it. But right now, while we are speaking, I'm collecting rent from over 500 tenants. This is happening as we speak. I don't deserve 10% of the collection just because I just provided a platform to collect.
Yeah, it's a credit processing at that point. With all the
Exactly.
markups, I'm like, what's the 10% for?
If I could, I would give Keasy's base subscription for free. I can't, but if I could, I would, because I feel like the subscription, what it does, it opens a menu of things that we can do for you. And that's where we bring value and make the money. Not that we're not bringing value on the day-to-day monitoring. The monitoring is what helps us find issues. But really, the magic of Keasy happens when you click a button and I'll meet your insurance agent on site and you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah. And that's fair. So how are you working with these owners on expanding their portfolios, right? Because the idea is, again, if they make more money, you make more money, everybody wins. So how have you been seeing your investors expanding? How has your role in all that been?
Yeah, we're trusted advisors for the most part. The landlords, all the landlords we work with grew in the 18 months of our operation because they enjoy working with us. We've had almost zero attrition. We've had one landlord who left us and it's because of a sale. We've been hopefully keeping our landlords happy. And I think one thing that I envision us doing in the near future is an actual workflow to help landlords with due diligence. Because just all the things that you mentioned, people ask us all the time. It's not in our menu service right now to help you decide whether or not to buy a building. But hey, it's not that complicated for us to create an AI bot, run your financials by it, run the zip code, find all the regulations, and create. We can do that. And it's been asked. So I'm assuming that's something that we will do soon. But even when we will, it's going to say loud and clear, big letters on the app page or wherever we're going to do it. Your property, your rules,
Right.
your property, your money. Triple check, my friend. This is one of the biggest investments people do.
And to your point, it's interesting you bring that up because if an investor is working with, when they're working with an agent, there are certain things an agent's not going to know or not going to know to look for, right? I remember I can't tell you how many times when we buy properties out of state or even when I'm with my clients, I always look for like, how many meters are there? Because
Yeah,
I'm seeing such a big disconnect between the description of a property and the actual property. Like the fourplex I bought last year it's been a total shit show because like the property management who was also the listing agent described the property one way, and then
yeah.
when we did our inspections, I'm like, this is nothing of what you represented.
Information today, nothing that is presented to you, you should take for granted,
Right.
right? We have access to everything, but we know nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So even more than before, for me, I look at tools and agents in general as people business,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like I need to communicate with another person on a very emotional, high touch thing. It's fantastic to have somebody in the middle running the communication,
Sure.
but I don't expect agents to know everything
Right.
because
It's
really
fair.
there is no school for landlording. There is there is no education you can get, and
Yes.
until you haven't had the pleasure to remove a dead body, then you won't know that it sucks,
Mm-hmm.
and so on. So for me, when I buy real estate for myself, my syndication group, or when I advise a Keasy owner about buying real estate, I always say, check the information. Just because the listing says doesn't mean anything. Check the source. You want to go to the county sources. You want to go to sources that you can trust.
Right.
And don't trust anyone else except those sources. Like people think, oh my gosh, it's set on Zillow. So what?
Yeah.
It's just a website.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh yeah, when it comes to the rent control stuff, I send them from the city. I send them
Yeah,
all the information. Or like I try to attend all the webinars. So here are the latest slides. But here's I get it all straight from the city. It's like I know my stuff to the best of my ability, but to your point, a law can literally change tomorrow.
exactly. Exactly. I think there is a general caveat that you need to know when you work in a state or in a city. What's the government like? What's the general vibe? And that's part of your risk. And you calculate it, right? There is a way to calculate the risk of vacancy, the risk of bad
Mhm.
debt. So as long as and I tell landlords in eviction this all the time, right? Eviction is the worst.
Yeah.
The property is still there.
Mhm.
Property is still there. It's going to end. You're going to get the property back. The value of the property remains. Part of the business. Just
Yeah.
like stock market sometimes crashes and we're all having a bad few weeks and it's going to be fine.
Yeah.
We're all healthy. It's all good.
Like even with the last eviction we had to do, they're like, hey, by the way, the tenant's behind. I'm like, okay. If they're willing to catch up, I'll break the lease. Right?
Cash
It's
flow.
like, what's the point in forcing them to stay? And,
100%.
and then they stop responding. So I'm like, okay. And they're like, do you want to do cash for keys? And I'm like, have they been responding? No. I'm like, so the problem is I can't do cash for keys because they're not willing to work with us. I'm willing to let them break the lease. If I do
Yep.
cash for keys, they're going to go do the same thing to the next landlord.
Yeah, I agree. I think before cash for keys, there is something that's called forgiveness for keys. And a
Mm-hmm.
lot of times, the first thing you need to do is say, hey, I'm dropping the case now. If you're moving out, everyone's happy.
Yeah.
Property manager doesn't have that incentive
Right.
because they bill you for the collection. They bill you for going to court. They bill you for every step. And they're working less because now they have a tenant that at least is not calling left and right and asking for repair and maintenance, hopefully. So who cares? They don't
Yeah.
need to worry about collection. They know it's not coming. There is a problem in the model. Now, Keasy has an entire workflow of how we run in the communication for you in cases of non-payment. And
Right.
by running the communication, it means we are going to reach out to your tenant, we're going to ask what's going on, get a response, send it to you with options. The options are always forgiveness for keys, cash for keys, payment plan, eviction, or do nothing. These
Yeah.
are your options,
Right.
right? And then your decision is really depend on your financials, your situation, your long-term goals. It's very different for every landlord. Why should I make that decision? It's your property.
Yeah, that's fair. And to be fair, I think even to your point, like I'm not a big fan of payment plans because again, it's like they can still get behind. But then to your point, it's like, what if the market's slow right now? What if it's hard to find a tenant? Then you're gonna want to work with them.
Yeah. And also with payment plans, my tip is it depends on the situation that the tenant has, right? If the tenants were a couple and they got divorced, one moved out, no payment plan is going to help you. Half of the income is gone.
Right?
But if the tenant just had a flat tire that cost them $1,000, and if you break down those $1,000 into 200 x 5, they'll be just fine. Totally worth a payment plan. Even more, it's worth a discount.
Yeah.
It's worth a small forgiveness. Take 200 off, give them that break they need, and help them get it together.
Yeah, because they'll remember when it comes to renewal time.
And it's not just about there. Remember, it might even be the best business decision for you. Why lose a good tenant? A good paying tenant is an asset.
Yeah,
If you have a
that's the
tenant
whole point.
for years, you want to work with them. I believe in working with tenants all the way. If you have a tenant that's been there for a long time and they're paying and communicating and respectful and they have a situation, help them out.
Yeah.
They're an asset.
What a concept.
Totally. Yeah.
All right, thank you so much for coming on the show. This has all been amazing. How can people get a hold of you?
So Keasy stands for give me the keys, I make it easy, because we send key holders to do all
I
the
thought
field
that's
work.
what it meant, but I was like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm gonna wait. That was actually my first thought. So well done.
Yeah, so that's the name. And the spelling is K and then the word easy
Mhm.
.ai. Okay. And we're not a fully AI company. There's real humans and all of that. It's just that Keasy.com was really expensive.
I appreciate
Keasy,
that.
yeah, Keasy.ai. And on the chat bot on the website, you can ask many questions and you can ask to schedule a meeting and talk to us, and it will immediately book a meeting. And most chances is this meeting will lead you to either me or to Guy or to Jordan. And then from there on, hopefully we can answer all your questions and become friends.
Perfect. Thank you again for coming on the show. This has been amazing. And thank you
Thank you
for
so much.
everyone watching and listening. And I'll talk to you guys next week. Want to keep unlocking the secrets to building real wealth in Los Angeles? Stick around for the next episode. Tap the video on screen to keep watching.